Layer comps, what are they? They are the sequence of After Effects. And to make a layer comp, it's very simple. You can come up to Composition, New Composition right here. And I'm going to walk us kind of through this. And we're going to start with Comp 1. And right now, I've got it on a 1920 by 1080 resolution, which is really useful. You can also come up here and choose a preset resolution, but most of the time I just normally type in, and I normally do the two sizes, 1920 or 1280. Those are the two types of high definition that we have available to us. Now, as 4K becomes more available, that becomes an interesting play. A lot of times when I'm doing work, especially for an output to YouTube, I may do it at 1280 by 720, but I'm still using 1080p footage. And the reason for that is it allows me to crop and scale and not lose any resolution. We'll always be doing square pixels. Frame rate. Now this is something that is different. This depends upon your camera and your device. Some of you may be using, say, an iPhone or a digital video camera or even a handy cam. And there's different film rates. For animation, you're looking at about 24 frames per second. We'll talk about how to make some animation later on. And if you're doing, say, a movie, you might be doing either 30 or 29.97, which is the most popular file frames per second. Now, for things like slow-mo and things where you are working with, like, say, a Sony camera, Sony actually runs at about 59.95 or 60 frames per second. You can, on your iPhone, record at 120 frames per second for a slow-mo video. So that can be really, really useful. Now, each time you bring in a video and comp it, that's going to be something we need to adjust. Now, down here, I've set my resolution to 1/4, pretty much as my default. The reason being, it helps my machine not lag. It lets me see the video pretty good. You can do it at full if you've got a high-powered machine. I just do it at 1/4, saves my computer a little bit of processing time. The start time, this should be always set to 0. You know, you're going to bring in footage and it's going to be all over the place. So you can always come in and type this in as 0, and we'll see that later on. And duration, okay? So you have hours in the first 0 here, so this would be 1 hour, 20 minutes, 15 seconds, and these are milliseconds, or also known as frames per second sometimes. So let's go in. I'm going to change the background color because I don't really use white a lot, but I do use black. Black is kind of the default color for After Effects background. I'm going to click OK. And it's going to make my first new comp. Now, I can zoom in and out on the comp layer right over here. You'll see 100%. And I can fit, and it'll bring it in a little bit so I can see a little bit to the left and right of my comp, as well as seeing the top and bottom. I often work with fit or to 100% in the two. I'm going to leave it at fit. Now, as I move over in the time slider here, right now we know I'm at 000. This is the time indicator here. If I slide, you can see now. Look at how easy that goes up and down. Over a little bit further, you have the ability to take a screenshot or a snapshot of any effect you're working on. And that can be actually useful for certain things like masking and rotoscoping, which we'll get to much later. Next, you have your channels. You can show a couple of different channels. Red, green, blue, alpha, RGB, straight. These will come into play when we get into masking again. Kind of this section is a little bit about masking. Here again, you can adjust the resolution at which you play back at. Auto, full, half, third, quarter. Most of the time, most of your computers are going to leave it on auto. I just switch right off the bat to 1/4. And it's a little bit faster if you notice. It's going right through that. Then we have over here, we have region of interest. If I click that, this can be a setting where I frame in a certain way. One of the most useful tools, I think, is right here, and that is the transparency grid. I can turn this on and off. Kind of think of this like a little bit like an image editing app. Each layer has a different level, and the background is actually on a layer of its own. It's right above this transparent pixel layer. And we have the active camera. We can do different camera views. This works more for 3D. And then we have over here different views that we can choose for those 3D. Over here, I don't really tend to do much with these yet, but we'll maybe touch on some of these later. Okay, so we've done that first comp. I'm gonna kind of come in now, and I want to talk a little bit about getting some footage in. Footage and audio and some other information. So let's kind of come in here, and there's a couple ways you can bring footage in. You can file, import, and I can choose files or multiple files if I know where I'm going. I'm going to go here with file first, and I'm going to look for that first lesson. So I'm going to look on my desktop, and I know I have my digital video assignments folder, and that just brought in the whole folder. Whoa, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so bad. You have to be very careful with After Effects and importing. I wanted to showcase that. It's better if you click, then click again, and slowly navigate to what you need. So I'm going to get to assets, and I'm going to find this little swimming dog. Little dog here, he's swimming. We can hit play. We see him swimming after a tennis ball. Little French bulldog, it looks like, I guess. Very cute. Now, I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to hit open. That's one way of bringing it in. The other way is, and a lot of times, if I'm working in different environments or working with multiple screens, I like to do what I call drag and drop, and I can do that really easily. I just drag and drop it right onto the project window, and that's what this is the project window. Here's that audio. And let me bring in one last thing, and that is the title. And I'll bring that in here. And this is going to ask me, okay, it's a Photoshop document. Do I want editable layer styles, merge layers into a single footage? What do they want? And I'm just going to say merge layers for this first version into footage. And there it is. I'll come back to that later on. Notice it made its own comp. All right. Interesting enough. Now that we've got some materials in here, let's talk a little bit about organization. It's very important with After Effects because you're going to get a lot of files. And I tend to break it down into 3 categories. I do a folder I call footage. I do another folder I call audio. And another folder called comps or compositions, depending on what you're looking at. All right, now as I'm working on this here, I want you to pay attention of how to organize this. So I'm going to take comp 1 that we created earlier, and I'm just going to drag it in here. And for footage, I'm going to move the swimming into the footage section. And for the movement, which is the audio file, I'm going to move that into the audio bin. And this new section, title layers, titles, I might, just move this into a separate folder. I might call this graphics. And put the title in there with the title layers for now. So as I'm working with my footage here, I'm going to talk a little bit about my way I like to make my comps. So there's a couple ways that you can make a comp really easily in After Effects. And there's reasons to do it certain ways. And this reason I do it is so that I get an exact match to my footage. Much like we did in Premiere, we would drag a piece of footage into the sequence, and it would ask us to match the sequence settings or match the footage settings to the sequence. It does the same kind of thing similar here in After Effects. So I'm going to click on the footage of the swimming dog, and I'm just going to drag and drop it on here on the little pre-comp or the comp button down here, and release. And this is going to make a composition of the swimming dog, and it matches the screen, fills it fully. Now it does require me to make a little bit of edits up here, because notice where the swimming dog landed. It's inside the footage. I'm going to drag this up into comps, and I'm going to rename it. It's kind of, you can kind of come in and rename these. Now you might think, okay, I'll just click here and rename it. It doesn't do that. All right. It's hard to rename in After Effects. It's one of those weird things that, it's got a little bit of a default setting that doesn't really allow you to kind of edit some of their features. So one of the things you might say, oh, wait, I can't rename this. You're right. We'll talk about how to do that in a little while. But right now, just kind of try and click on it. You'll notice it makes the screen go open or wide. And if you right click, there's no rename feature. There's nothing up here. And you're like, wait, there's just no way to rename this right now. Well, there is a trick, and it's a keyboard shortcut, but we'll get to it. Now, you can also come up, and in here, you'll see that this is the footage. Swimming dog is inside it, and it's the swimming dog composition. I know it says footage none over here, but ignore that for now. So here we have our little dog. And before I get going on it, I want to right-click on the comp. Before I begin editing, I always right-click and choose composition settings just to check to see what we have. I have 7 seconds at 0000 for the time code. That's perfect. I'm running at 30 frames per second. Okay, and just come back to swimming dog, and I'll hit play. There we go. Much better this time. I had too many things going at the same time. All right, so there. I can see my whole clip. It's playing nice and perfectly. I want to talk a little bit about, now that we've got our comp in, how we could do some basic minor editings to get to some juicy stuff, to make it a little more fun. Maybe we want this clip to be a little more exciting. We can do that, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to edit. So maybe I want this part of the frame to start. This is where I begin, and I see this extra footage here, and there's a tendency to grab it and drag it to the time scrubber, but it's really not the best method. In After Effects, it's better to do some cutting. You can hit Shift D or Command D. It should be Command Shift D. Yep, Command Shift D on a Mac, and it would be Control Shift D on a PC, and it will make a cut. This is the old footage. I can turn it off, and you can now see that when that is off, it's only showing in the black. I don't need this footage, so I can take it out. And I'm going to just drag this to the left until it reaches the edge here. And then I'm going to play a little bit more. And I'm going to find another spot where I want to cut, maybe right there. I like that. I'm just going to give this a quick trim. Control or Command Shift D or Control Shift D on a PC. That gives it a cut. And I'm going to get rid of this top piece. So now I'm left with just this section. And if I go to the end here, I can press N, and that trims up my work area. So it's nice and tidy. A little bit more there. And this now is what my computer will render between here and here. But I want to get to something a little more exciting. I want to do something that pops this footage. Maybe this is an intro section. Maybe this is going to be, you know, something that happens in my film, and I want to make sure it looks really good. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to start with just some basic animation. And this is really, really easy. So I'm going to come up and choose animation. And there are animation presets. Okay? So make sure you're clicked on your footage. Then come up and choose animation. And I'm going to apply an animation preset. So I'm going to click on this menu item. It's going to open up a series of folders on my computer, and it dives deep into your animations, and there's all sorts of ones. There's backgrounds, behaviors, special effects, shapes, text animations. I'm going to come down here to transitions and movement. That's what I kind of want us to do. And there's quite a few in here. There's kind of some neat ones here. I'm going to drag this so you can see the screen a little bit wider, so we maybe can see some of the names a little bit easier. And you know, there's a card wipe, there's a fly-in set. You know, I'm going to go just with simple stretch and blur. I'm going to choose the stretch and blur feature, and I'm going to hit open. And this is immediately going to apply an effect. Now, as I watch this, okay, let's hit play here, and we'll see how it comes in. So there was the effect. As I step back, we can see that the film is stretched and blurred in. So it's kind of got that nice little swipe in. And it's just a beginning idea of getting some juiciness to our clips. Now, let's come down here and find out what really happened. So After Effects, I'm going to raise this panel up just a little bit so you can see a little more. And that'll shrink my comp window. I'm going to turn down the little flag here. And in here, it'll show me, look, there's this thing called an effect. You'll see 2 round bullets, and that's letting me know, okay, that's where the effect has been applied. If I turn it down one more time on the effects, I can see stretch, master, control. And if I turn down that, I'll see a lot of settings now all of a sudden, but that's okay. These are things that I want to control and do things with. And a couple things I'm going to do is I'm going to try and apply this effect to the end of the clip as well. So I'm going to select these 2 keyframes. I'm going to choose edit, copy. I'm going to drag my time indicator to where I think I want it to apply. Just a little bit like right there. Edit, paste. It's going to put the 2 clips in. Now it went past the range. That's okay. I can just drag it in. I can also just rearrange this. If I flip it like so, this clip now will play in, watch it, and then stretch out. So we stretch in, stretch out. Kind of a neat little effect, kind of something quick to do, easy to be. All right, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to add one last thing to my objects here. Now notice my project window disappeared. All the effect window is up here, and I need to get to my project window because I want to get to my audio. You may see this double arrow up here. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to go right back to project. And in here, I'm going to grab that audio wave and drag it down. I'm going to put it below. Now, I know that the dog itself had its own audio, so I'm going to turn its off. I know I've got my audio down low, so you can't hear it. And let me turn my audio on. There we go. And now that I've got this, I should be able to make sure you've got audio turned on over here, audio in preview. Make sure video is in preview on, and I should be able to hit play. And we get a jazzy little dog. Woo!